Hey everybody, welcome back to the Calibrate Tools and DIY channel. Glad you guys could make it today. Um, Once again, we come on every Tuesday. That could change in the future, but for now, it's every Tuesday, this time, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So nobody's quite come on in yet. So I'm going to, wait for people to come on in and bless the show with their presence and stuff like that. But anyway, guys, as you can see, the title is the American Dream Still Alive, and I would really love to hear your thoughts on this. Um, it means different things to different people that phrase the American Dream. Um, just like the Constitution, it was an ideal. It is an ideal. It's not necessarily a reality for everybody, right? We're all out there striving to attain some level of what that means for us, right? Whatever that is. Um, so I would love to hear what that means for you. I mean, what does the American dream mean for you? Um, Part of why I do this channel, by the way, is so people can attain the American dream through you know promoting the trades and stuff like that. Because everybody doesn't have access, right, to the corporate jobs or even to get their foot in the door, but the trades do offer access, even on the lowest levels, the lowest rungs of the ladder. You don't have to go work in a mailroom like I did in a corporate setting many years back to try to work your way up, to whatever that whatever title that you were chasing after. In the trades, you can hit the ground running. You can hit the ground running, and it definitely wouldn't take that long. But anyway, let me circle back to what you know the definition. What is the actual definition of the American dream, by the way, guys? Can somebody tell me what the definition is um, for them? Let's see here. Well, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what it means in layman's terms. I think a guy by the name of, let me see, James Truslow Adams. He described it as that dream of a land in which life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with the opportunity for each according to ability or achievement. That's a nice flowery statement. It sounds good. Um, I mean, everybody can identify with that, right? Go to a land in which it's just so much opportunity. It's like the land of milk and honey, which it was for a certain class of people back in the days, especially the wealthy class, the rich class, um, who had resources at their disposal to come over here uh, in this land that we call America and establish themselves, right? But of course, there was another side to that dream, right? It was the American nightmare for the natives that lived here or who were here when, you know, uh, the Europeans came and established their dream, which was to pretty much wipe them out so they can establish their own um, utopia, as I should say. Um, so yeah, that was a dream, and it was, hey, they did it to an extent. They did it right, and but like I said, there's always two sides to every story, and a lot of times we don't like talking about the dark side or the not so pretty side of the American dream. But as a result of that, um, establishing what we call the United States today in the early days and all of that, back when it was the back when the Pilgrims landed on Plymouth Rock, and then the 13 colonies and all that good stuff, and then all the way up to the 50 states today. You know, that laid the foundation for many people from all over the world to come and establish themselves here. And of course, that road to where we are now was also littered with uh, nightmares, as and but so some people built their dreams on other people's nightmares. That's just, I guess, the American, the true American dream, right? So um, we that's a whole nother conversation. But aside from that, let's kind of fast forward till today. Is the American dream still alive? Yeah, all that ugly stuff and messed up stuff happened, and a lot of stuff still going on. Um, in that regard. But depending on your perspective and how you look at life, you can say, okay, well, I'm gonna make it happen for myself anyway, regardless of all of that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use that as fuel to power my own success, right? Power my, manifest my own dream, right? I'll look at that stuff and say, okay, well, you know, um, let me take all of that and just pour it into what I'm doing. Take all that negative energy and pour it into what I'm doing, and actually make something of myself. But is it easier today, even for the privileged classes, okay, to make it in today's society and achieve that American dream, right? Um, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on today where you may say, well, it's harder today. Well, I wouldn't say it's harder, but there's a lot of obstacles in the way of even younger folks, right? Attaining that dream, which is, the picket fence, the house, the car, the nice job, retiring with a pension and all that good stuff. That stuff is not really, that doesn't really exist anymore, right? Maybe in small sectors of society, it's there, but it's definitely not like it was, you know. Millennials, right? That term millennials. Who are millennials? People born between the ages the years 1981 to 1996. They're coming of age now where all those things that were available to them, the pension, the the uh, the low college tuitions, stuff like that, low rents, stuff, the ability to buy a home with, putting money down on a home that's, well, you had to qualify for less than what your median household income was. That's not here anymore. That's not here anymore. Up to very recently, those things went away. So trying to achieve the so-called American dream for a lot of these younger people today, and it's not a reality. So that's why you see a lot of so-called millennials, taking, out of the box ways to make a living, redefining what the American dream is for them, bucking the system, all that stuff. They're not just doing it because just to do it. They're doing it because they're looking at the environment that they're in, and they're adapting accordingly, right? They're adapting accordingly, and I think I was perusing online, and a lot of them are complaining about people calling them lazy and stuff like that. Well, and well, if you look at your environment, it seems like there's no way out. You may not be as motivated, right, to go after what your parents probably taught you was the way to go, right? You may be discouraged when you look at the realities of the situation, going in debt, severely in debt, uh, because you took out so many loans just to go to school and then just to get out, still have that debt on you and not be able to service the debt because you can't get the job, that you thought you were going to get, right, in your field. So now you're upset, and you're looking at life as like, man, what did I do? Where I'm stuck. I guess I'm still living at home with my parents. Uh, there's nobody's hiring, and even if I do get hired, I'm not getting paid uh, enough to keep me afloat and all of that. So it can be very demoralizing, having to go through all that. But it is a reality. Matter of fact, I'm gonna throw some stats out to you about what uh, millennials are facing today. Okay, so let's see here. Like I mentioned before, the income needed to qualify for the average home, um, let's uh, say between the years 1980 and 2019, right? Uh, it was less than what the income needed to qualify for the home. Actually, to get the home was less than the household income, right? So if you had a house, your household income was say $68,000. You needed about 40 grand to qualify for a home, um, right? That's about let's see, what percentage was that? That's about 60% of your household income. Fast forward to 2023, all right? the median household income went up to about 81 grand. But guess what now? Tables are turned. Now you need $110,000 to qualify to get a home, right? So you need about 35% more than what your income is, okay, just to get a home. Not to mention the rents are sky high now. They're going up. Whereas, say, I don't know, pre 2010, you needed about 16-17% of your income to rent. Now you need like 25-30%. So this is what younger folks are facing today as they come of age and find their way in the world. Just establishing themselves on a basic level. Even rent, right? I mean, forget a house, forget trying to get a house, just rent. Rent is a big challenge today. And you had things happen just recently in the last 3 or 4 years. I know I talked a lot about it. I mentioned because it's a reality. It affected everybody, right? The pandemic came in and really knocked things off kilter, right? And so right? And then you see things like minimum wage going. Oh, they minimum, like here in California, the minimum wage is $16, and it's up from what it was before. And if you were, say, my age or something, you say, oh man, it's the minimum wage is $16. I remember back in the days when I was working, it was $6, $7, and it's up to $16 now. And you think, if you don't do the research, you think that's an accomplishment, right? But I would say not so much, right? Say from 1968, 38, yeah, about 50 years prior to 1968. So between years 1938 to 1968, about 50 years, the minimum wage kept pace with inflation, right? So, you could survive. You could survive. But after that, after 68, forget it, right? Just because the numbers look like they're going up doesn't mean they're really keeping pace with the larger macroeconomics, right? Let's say from 68 on, like I said, the minimum wage, that's the state minimum wage in California, $16. But you have to understand there's state and federal minimum wage, right? Guess what the federal minimum wage is? Somebody tell me what the federal minimum wage is. I'll give you time to look. Federal minimum wage is about $7.25. That's what it is, $7.25. Now, states can, establish their own minimum wage, right? They have the right to do that. But I'd say about 15 states, out of the 50 states, about 15 of them, and somebody, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 15 of those states are above $15 an hour, or around there, $15 an hour or so, which means that 3/4 of the United States is, below minimum. I mean, like below $15. So imagine that, right? Trying to keep pace with inflation, rising interest rates, rising taxes, housing, the housing issues as well, right? Trying to get a house even today as an adult, right? As an established adult trying to get a house, it ain't easy, right? So I'm saying all this to say, hey, look, is the American dream still alive given all these circumstances that we face today? Or is it just a pipe dream, right, that's fed to you to keep you, in those seats and, learning in those classes in those colleges, and so you can get out and service more debt for the big corporations, right? And I'm not against the corporate world. I mean, they hire people, right? But at the same time, why? What's it all about? I mean, what's the ultimate goal here? Is it to help you get to that 1% or not? Peregrine Life Note says the value of $1 is based on what you can buy with it. Absolutely. And if the value of your dollar, Peregrine Life Notes, decreases over time, I mean, come on, you can only buy so much, right? Matter of fact, I was just talking about minimum wage. I think the minimum wage from 1968 on has actually, the value of a minimum wage dollar has been cut in half due to all the other extenuating circumstances, inflation and stuff like that. So even though, like I said, it looks like it's going up, say when I was coming up, it was around maybe $7. Now it's $16 in California. It's still $7 on the federal level, by the way. Like I said, $7.25. Yeah. So what kind of moves do you make in this environment here? What kind of strategic moves you have to make to, I mean, the writing's on the wall, right? I'm not a mathematician here, but I mean, all you got to do is like look at the numbers and it can tell you that things ain't adding up. So if you don't do something quick that's outside the box, or not, or maybe not what your parents thought, wanted you to do, right? I mean, let's face it, one income doesn't cut it today. Even as a single person, right? You living by yourself, even in a relative, you can afford your rent, but that's on one income. That's really, at a, it's not gonna cut it. You need other sources of income, whatever that is. That's why the gig economy blew up during the pandemic, right? When everything blew up and people needed to work. You got to think about other ways to make money in order to survive. Otherwise, you're gonna sink, and that's just hard facts. I just laid out some stats and stuff for you to think about. Another thing too, people, that I like to throw in the mix here is the military option, right? Like a lot of people say, well, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go to the army. I'm gonna get a GI, I'm gonna get a GI Bill, and I could live. They're gonna pay for my lodging and housing. I just got to be a good soldier. I just got to do my time. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that if that's your choice. I myself was in the military, okay, and everybody had their own experience in the military. I had a pretty well. I'll just put it like this: I had an experience there. It was definitely a learning experience. But when you look at the larger picture, and these options and how the economics work out, and you know, um, who's actually, creating the value of a dollar here. Like, for example, I just said the Fed minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. If you think about it, right, the majority of people who are not educated because they can't afford school, right, or they can only afford us to go so far, if you're talking about education beyond high school, right? Um, they can only make so much money, right? Their options are limited in terms of income. So a lot of them are going to choose a route where it seems easier, it's more attractive to them. So they make things like the military and things like that more attractive to those people, right, who don't necessarily have much options, and they're usually from low income areas, right? And so think, I mean, it's like driving a certain class of people, if you want to use that term, into the military, because those other options are stifled for them. They're not as available, right? Unless their parents have money or they got some kind of scholarship or affirmative action. And of course, they're trying to chop that away, the affirmative action thing. They're trying to get rid of that, to force people into other avenues, right? To force certain people into other avenues where it's their only option. So you may go out there and fight a war and you may not come back, right? Um, Figure out what you can offer and receive dollars. Yeah, Paragood Life knows, absolutely. That's what I'm getting at, right? That's really the gist of what I'm getting at here. Is you have these conditions today, right? That if you don't have a skill or some kind of skill that you could monetize, not just a hobby, not just something you like doing or something you're good at, but something that provides value in the marketplace, so you won't be ran over by these conditions, right? Aside from the not being able to have enough money to qualify for a home. Let's just say you do have the money to qualify for a home. Well, you have institutions that make it harder for you to get that home, and those are called hedge funds, private equity firms, stuff like that. Today, those guys are buying up. They got so much money. They're like a group of investors that borrow money from like high net worth individuals, corporations, foundations, and things like that. And they take that money and they go invest it right in high risk deals. So they can make a profit. The higher the risk, the bigger the reward for them. So these hedge funds, and some of you guys probably know of heard people talking about it lately. They've been buying up all these homes, like a bunch of homes, right? All at once, because they got the money to do that. They got the millions and millions of dollars to do that. And so what that's doing is that's decreasing the inventory that's out there for, as far as houses and stuff like that. And what does that do to the average homeowner? Or somebody's looking to buy a house? It's making it harder for them to get the house because supply and demand. If the supply is short, then the price is going to shoot up, right? The supply is short, the higher the demand. I think they passed a law, or Congress is trying to pass a law to stop these big entities like hedge funds and private equity firms and institutional money from scooping up all these houses and disrupting the real estate market. So that's another thing that you got to deal with, right? You got the big guys with the big money who doesn't care about. They don't care about you just graduating from college or just maybe you could be an older person or just trying to find a house. They don't care about that. They're trying to make money. So fortunately, they have people that have some kind of checks and balances in their head saying, hey, that's not right. People are being affected. They're disrupting stuff. And they're trying, passing. I think they just passed a law to stop that from happening. Matter of fact, let me see if I can find that for you guys. Talk a little bit about it. And if I can't, sorry about that. Okay, I let me see here. Give me a second, fellas. Yeah, so once again, what do you do? I'm spouting all these issues going on. What do you do about it? The average person is not going to really, they're not going to think about it. They're going to be affected by it, and that's all they're going to do. And they're not going to affect their own lives or position themselves to be, not to be a victim of these things. All right. Okay, here we go. Here's an article here. I'll just kind of read a little bit about it for you guys, keep you up to speed. Hedge funds have invaded the housing market. A new bill would ban them. Okay, it says hedge funds, private equity firms, investment trusts have been snatching up single-family homes all around the country for years, creating concern that homeowners themselves would be pushed even further out of the market. Some, I won't mention his name, but somebody in Congress introduced a bill that would ban them. Okay, these corporate investors, right, from doing this. Okay, so it's not happening. I mean, it's the bill was introduced, but until it's passed, right? And you got to understand, these people in Congress and all of that, they got a stake in it too. They're the private equity guys as well, right? They're the hedge fund guys. So who knows if it'll pass or not, right? Oh, let's see. It says the bill, which was introduced in both the U.S. Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives on Thursday, would over a 10-year period require hedge funds and large institutional investors to completely divest. That means get rid of, divest from single-family home ownership. It says it's called the End Hedge Fund Control of American Homes Act. The bill would require large funds to sell off 10% of their homes each year over a decade. Okay. So yeah, we see how that goes. But that's over 10 years, right? And I think I was reading somewhere that they already have these corporate investors. You might as well just call them corporate raiders, right? Remember that term, corporate raiders, because they're pretty much raiding your your opportunity. They're taking away your opportunity to get a home, to live that quote unquote American dream, to make it harder for you to get to live that quote unquote American dream, right? And because it's ruthless out here. That's the other side of the American dream. A lot of people don't want to talk about. Okay, they want to live the American dream too, at your expense. That's the side people don't want to talk about. See, the American dream was based on getting a leg up, while that other leg is stepping on someone else's back. And you may not agree with me on that, but that's just how the country was founded. So they're not doing anything new here. It's just you know. So the bill would require the Internal Revenue Service to tax large funds that fail to sell off their single family homes over that time frame. I wonder how much that tax bill would be, because maybe some of them would say, "Hey, I'll eat the tax bill because I'm going to make more money on the homes. So who cares?" So they're going to crunch the numbers and say, "Okay, what is how much you going to tax me?" And then they're going to say, "Okay," they're going to look at their portfolio of all the homes that they have and say, "Okay, I'm going to make so much money off of these homes, and this is going to be my tax bill if I don't divest." Ah, screw them. I'll eat the tax bill. Go ahead and tax me. I'm going to make more money over here anyway. So these little slaps on the hands don't always work, right? It depends, right? So yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's what's going on on that front. Let me go back here. Uh, back to the chat here. Here I am. Back to the chat, sis. Some hobbies can be converted to income. Yeah, I'm gonna start with Perry Girl. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely, Perry Girl. Some hobbies can be converted to income, and it's good to have hobbies, but in this economy, if that's all you have, then you're gonna really run into problems. Mike Reed, how you doing, Mike Reed? Thanks for stopping by. BlackRock, yeah, that's one of those. Yeah, we all know about BlackRock. If you do a little bit of reading and you remember the 1990s, you know about them. They are late to the party. BlackRock started to wind down this line of investment. Really, is that right? Mike Reed said if they sold off too soon, it would crash the housing market. Didn't think of that. Yeah, you might be right about that. They have to systematize. They even have to systematize their penalties, right? They can't just snatch it all away too soon, because that could disrupt things. And maybe the too big to fail thing with the back in 2008, maybe that was the same line of thinking as well. Hey, Daryl the finisher, my man Daryl. By the way, guys, check out Daryl the Finisher's channel. He's doing pretty good. Daryl, congratulations on that. He has some good information. I learned from Daryl. Daryl said, in my area, there are whole housing developments being built as rentals. Yes, Daryl, and you know who's doing that? These big guys. These big guys, they have the money just to build them all at once. And that's how they do it. You see all these things coming up so fast and everything. It's not just a little developer over there. Those developers are subcontracted by these big private equity firms too. So they're buying up houses, and they're also building these large developments. As the homes age, it will cost them more. That's why they're already divesting. Okay. Interesting thoughts there. Yeah. So when you look at you get a bird's eye view of what's going on, not just in your own little world, but why certain things are happening to you. why things are more expensive, why you can't afford certain things that you would like to have. You start, and you see the bigger players, right? You see the bigger players out there that are moving bigger assets around, bigger, they're moving large blocks of money around, and when you move big things around, they push the little things around, right? And those little things could be us. You got a better understanding, okay, of where you are in the grand scheme of things, and how you want to move ahead, right? What are you gonna do? I mean, what's your ultimate goal at the end of the day, right? What's your goal? Are you I mean, if it's not to become one of these people, right? At least you want to at least have some kind of, you want to build something that's a little more anchored, right? You want to build a financial base that's a little more anchored. And I'm talking a lot to the younger folks too, right? Um, and I hate to use the term, if you can't beat them, join them. But in a way, you can join them without necessarily you know, having to be ruthless like them. Um, and that comes down to, how are you looking at the money that you're getting now, even from that little job you may have, or that job or whatever. What are you doing with that money? Are you investing that money? Is it growing for you? Um, are you doing the right things with it? Is it just sitting there, or are you putting it into vehicles that can take you further, right? Than just sitting there, right? So say, if you put your money in the bank and it's just sitting there, it's not really gaining that much, or growing that much, maybe 1-2%. I don't know what it is right now. The rate is for a CD, rather than putting it into, say, a more versatile, mobile financial instrument, right? You got, I mean, do you have life insurance? Some of these life insurance vehicles have within them ways to, cash accumulation policies, where you can, at some point in the future, you can pull that money out to start a business, or even get that house so you can live the American dream, right? And if the younger you start, the better, because the younger you start, the lower your premiums are going to be, right? And say, maybe 20, 30 years down the line, you could actually have a good chunk of money in there, right? Are you looking at these things? Are people telling you about these things? Sometimes it's just our lack of education that keeps us in the position that we're in. Because those big guys I just talked about, they had to get educated too. They were kids too at some point, right? But they learned the game, whether it's from the family or whether it's, from whatever. And I know a lot of it's like inherited wealth and stuff like that. But some of them, some of these people, they weren't. They just learned the game. They put themselves in a situation where they understood the bigger, the bigger chess pieces on the board, that they could move, so they could position themselves to, be. And once again, these firms, they it's not just one person. The definition of a hedge fund or a private equity firm, so these are multiple people collaborating together, right? Whether they're businesses, whether they're high net worth individuals, foundations, endowments, all coming together, right, to make money, right? So that there's a spirit of collaboration there, because they could hate each other all day, but when it comes to the dollar bill, they don't hate each other. They make money together, and not, stuff like that. So, you know, think of collaborating with other individuals of a like mind, to at least position yourself better, better than you are now, or at least at some point in the future, you're going to be in a much better position financially. A lot of stuff I didn't know as a kid, and I still don't know a lot, right? Because this stuff wasn't taught to me. It wasn't taught to my generation. In my community, this wasn't, this language here wasn't spoken, because my parents probably didn't necessarily know about it either, because they weren't taught, right? And so on and so forth. But today, fortunately, there are a lot of people coming from my community that are investing. Matter of fact, more uh, people in my community are investing than ever, and that's a beautiful thing. You know, not just going to a job and just getting. No, they're doing something with the money. All right, they're growing the money. Um, yeah. So yeah, guys. So the American dream, is that real for you? And some people probably have redefined what that means to them. Right? It's not. It's maybe it's more about having time with family, because there are certain things you can't put a price on. Right? You can't put a number on it. If you can spend time with your family, you can grow up, you can raise your kids. That's the dream for people. That's they're not seeking to be like gazillionaires and all that stuff. They just want to live a comfortable life, feed their families, educate their families, maybe uh, get an extra home or two, a little piece of real estate here and there, um, so they can hand down to the down the line. All right, I think that's important. Right, I think it's very important that you have something to pass down, and you know it all comes down to relationships and how much you value those things. Right, so yeah, is American dream still alive? I guess it can be. It can be whatever it can be if you do the right things, regardless of the situation where you came from, regardless of how this whole thing started. Um, Today, I think that it's if you apply yourself, even as a quote unquote minority in this system. I'm not talking about the outliers, the basketball players, the athletes, the entertainers. I'm not talking about those people at all. They don't even come to this conversation, right? They've been getting paid ever since back then, because that was the only thing they can do. Even back then, when um, they were allowed to do. I'm not talking about them. So we know those people are always going to be paid, because that's something they're quote unquote allowed to be, to flourish in. And no disrespect to that industry, but I'm just talking about the average person, right? The so-called average person that, if they make the right moves, and it doesn't require you to be a financial wizard. You know, it just requires you to look into what's out there, to place yourself in a better position, and have the discipline uh, to stick to the program, right? Have the discipline to stick to the program, and time flies, right? 30 years is gonna fly by just like that. It's gonna fly by just like that. So you might as well just make the best use of it, right? Make the best. If I knew what I knew now, if I knew then what I knew now, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, totally different. But it's no use even talking like that, right? Just start where you are right now. Start where you are right now, and make the right moves, and you'll be all right. Especially if you have kids, teach them as well, right? Because they're gonna look back and say, "Dang, why didn't my folks tell me about this?" You don't want them saying that. Um, so at least put it in their ear, and let them see what you're doing as well, and they'll remember stuff like that. Anyway, guys, appreciate you coming on. Hope you got something from this. Make it happen for yourself. Have your own personal goals, dreams, whatever you want to call them. They can happen. You trust me, they can. You just have to do it. You just got to block all the noise out, focus, and it'll cut through anything. It'll cut through all the obstacles that are out there. Okay. Anyway, guys, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.